Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legionaries of Christ and I teach theology. This is a podcast on StarQuest Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're giving a general overview of Christus Dominus, an interview with Father Dermot Ryan, LC. So just a little introduction to what Christus Dominus is, very brief, and who Father Dermot is, and we'll bring him on. So Christus Dominus just means Christ the Lord, and it's the first words. Just like all these Vatican documents, the name comes from the first words. And the topic is the pastoral office of bishops. And we'll see why Father Dermot is particularly expert in this. Honestly, this was the document I most thought about skipping because I thought, like, a lot of the documents here get specific roles, and, you know, we have a moderately wide audience, but I suspect there's at most one or two bishops listening. Most of you, whereas priests, I expect there's, a dozen or at least a dozen or 2 dozen or something, and the same with religious who are listening in, given our numbers. But so if you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican. So let me introduce Father Dermot Ryan. He is a Legionary of Christ who joined the community in 1973. He was ordained in 1985, and he's worked at the Vatican for a long time. He first worked there in 1998, and he worked at the Congregation for Bishops for 18 years. He has a doctoral degree in canon law, so all those kind of tough questions that the ones that I'm kind of, people sometimes ask me, and I'm like, go and ask a canon lawyer. He probably has the answers to those. And he's also taught at Regina Apostolorum, the Pontifical Athenaeum the Legionaries run in Rome. And now he's retired from the Vatican and things like that, and he is part of the LC formation team at our House of Studies there in Rome. So welcome to the podcast, Father Dermot.
Thank you. Great to be here. I have an Irish accent, as you probably will have picked up right now, but I'll do my best to speak in as clearly as possible.
You're perfectly clear. Yes, that was one thing I did miss in summary. Yes, Father Dermot is from Ireland. Even though I'm from the States, I've developed a very American accent living here for half of my life at this point. So just we're going to talk about a few different things as we talk about this document. We're going to talk about the episcopacy as one level of orders, right? We have deacon, priest, and bishop. We're going to talk about the two key themes, the college and the diocese. We're going to talk a little bit about documents that came forth from Christus Dominus that are kind of subsequent to it and what they kind of developed from Christus Dominus. And then we're going to talk about a chapter by chapter summary. So, Father Dermot, one of the big things in Vatican II is Lumen Gentium declared that episcopal consecration was that third level of sacrament orders, not just a legislative process. At least as far as I understood with my basic study of orders, is that before Vatican II was debated whether the priest had all the power of the episcopacy, it was just kind of the consecration, just the kind of releasing that power, legislating that power. But that seems to be a difference. So could you explain a little bit about how that difference is and how that plays out in Christus Dominus?
Yes, quite clear that we have 3 levels of in the sacrament of order. So it's not just a legislative process. In the first order, we have the order, well, if you like, the order of deacon. Building up then to the second is the order of the priesthood presbyter, and then the bishop would be the fullness of the sacrament of orders placed in him. So he's given the full degree, if you like, of to teach, to sanctify, and to govern with a portion of the church, which we call a diocese, which isn't just a geographical place, but it's a community of people, especially, which is one of the characteristics that Vatican II wanted to bring out, that the church is not just geographically set out, but it's people, it's a portion. So this portion of people is under the guidance of the bishop. So yes, it's a very special ceremony in which he's ordained a bishop. He's named by the Holy Father, and I had collaborated in a lot of that over the years in the Vatican, in the Curia. So we help in the discernment as to who's the right person in the right diocese, and would have the qualities and capacities to teach effectively and to sanctify in with the sacraments and to govern in a pastoral way, especially in today's world. So that would be
excellent. Yeah. I think also we see the kind of idea of the diocese being a people also when you see how there's overlapping dioceses with other rites. Like I grew up in the prairies of Canada, and that's the highest concentration of Ukrainians outside of Eastern Europe in the world. And so we'd have the Roman Catholic diocese, then we'd have the Ukrainian Catholic diocese, and it would have the same, well, the Ukrainian Catholic diocese would have several Roman Catholic dioceses as territory, but, it would take care of those people, the ones who are Ukrainian Rite, and the Roman Catholic one would take care of the majority of us who are Roman Rite.
yes.
So the two key themes that this document really brings up is really the college and the diocese. You kind of touched on the diocese already.
Yes.
And the college here, it's important for listeners. The word college is more like a group, not thinking of like I went to Dartmouth College or I did my college at the University of Pennsylvania or something like that. No. So what can you explain a little bit, Father Dermot, on the Episcopal College or the College of Bishops, which are just in terms of the same thing?
Right. Well, sometimes the more common way of understanding college is that you have a group of people and they elect a president or whatever to guide that. That would be the juridical type of college. But in the church, it's very different. And the idea it can be explained best if we go back to Jesus and the apostles. And Jesus set up his church in a very unique way. And he placed Peter at the head. We remember after his resurrection, he asked him if he loved him, and then he gave him this supreme power over the church. And all the other apostles, the other 12 are involved in that. You are Peter, on this rock I'll build my church. And they, in the Last Supper, then they were ordained ministers and ordained bishops, if you like. And so there's a unique, this is the College of Bishops, if you like, around this unique person who's our Pope, who takes the place of Peter and is the vicar of Christ on earth. So in this group, they're bonded together. You have the Pope at the head, and he has supreme power over all the church, immediate. But he also has this college of bishops, and they're across the world. And they will come together at times for the government purposes, or if the Pope consults or whatever. Just to give you an example, we remember in 325 there was the great Council of Nicaea. The Nicene Creed was brought out. And how did that come about? It came about as a result of the meeting of the College of Bishops, and the legates of the Pope were also there. He didn't actually call the council together. It was Arius, if you remember. He believed that Jesus Christ was not really God. He was a human person, especially. And so they had to discuss this, and it was causing great division between, especially in the Eastern churches. So Constantine, the emperor, called together this meeting in Nicaea, and they got together, about 250 bishops or thereabouts, and they signed this document, and the legates of the Pope had been sent afterwards. So that gave the authorization and the credibility to this grouping. And the Nicene Creed, which we pray at Mass on Sundays, was the fruit of that. So you can see a college is it's very unique. There's a unique power there given to the church by God, and it's hierarchical. So you can see that there is it's organic. You have the Pope, the bishops, and then you have priests, and then we have all the laity as well. So each one has their own role. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the college. We also had I'm forgetting which one it was, either the Immaculate Conception or the Assumption. The Pope went and sent out a letter to all the bishops of the world if he should declare it. And like almost all the bishops said yes. And one or two said no, not because they didn't believe it, but because they thought, hey, let's try and work on ecumenical things to get the Protestants back in the fold. And this might not be the best for that, was their argument. It wasn't an argument against it. It was an argument like, it's not prudential to declare it now. I forget which one. It was either Immaculate Conception or the Assumption, one of those two, the two.
Well, the Immaculate Conception, that was 1854, was Pope Pius IX. What he did was he consulted all those bishops across the world, and he always wanted to declare this as a dogma because it had been believed by the church from the very beginning, practically. And so only after he got the input of them, so yes, you're right in the sense that this was a consultation of the College of Bishops, and he wanted to have their backup, as it were. He didn't want to say something that would be wrong. And he got the confirmation that he needed. And so then, of course, we know that in Lourdes, Our Lady appeared and to Bernadette shortly afterwards. And this was, she named herself the Immaculate Conception. So, yes, this is another example of the College of Bishops working together with the Pope at the head.
Excellent. Yeah. So the other theme is really the diocese. Like you mentioned kind of in the thing about the orders, how the bishop has that actual authority over his diocese, he's connected to his diocese. Can you explain a little bit about what Christus Dominus says about the connection between the bishop and his diocese?
Well, yes, it's fundamental. He is, if you like, he has full power for teaching, for sanctifying, and in a pastoral way. They're the three, if you like, offices, or the three ways that the bishop works. He has that legislative power as well. So he will be, he is an actual fact of the church. The diocese around the bishop with the laity and the priests, we call them, that is a church. And united with the universal church, he is an actual fact, a concrete manifestation of the universal church. And that's important. That's also kind of this idea of the diocese being independent of the rest of the church is wrong. We're all united we have a common faith that we all share. And this power too is shared, but each one in his own diocese has the complete authority, and that cannot be interfered by another bishop who wants to do. He has to have to consult this pastor of the diocese, and the priests within the diocese are his cooperators. They're collaborating with him. They have to work together in unity. So this is very important. There's both the collegial power, and then there's also this unity among the church and all the different churches. And then we have also, you mentioned the Eastern Rite churches working together, the Ukrainians or whether in a diocese. So the idea is challenging. It's because they would have a different rite, different culture, and the idea of working together as one body in Christ is the challenge. So yes, that's the role of the bishop. He is independent. This is interesting too from the point of view of what we call the Conference of Catholic Bishops, right? They get together too.
Yeah, the kind of national conferences, which are kind of like a specific or state. In the U.S., some of the states have, the bishops also have like a separate one. You have the USCCB, which everybody knows, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. And then you have some states have an individual one as well in that sense, right?
Yes. It's interesting that this document that we're talking about, Christus Dominus, has been fundamental for a document that came after that, which is the Code of Canon Law in 1983, which is like the last document of the Vatican Council, and it puts it all together. Maybe just a little over 200 canons explain, and they all explain very well exactly what a bishop can do, what he cannot do, what the priests and the parishes can do, what they cannot do, how a bishop is named within the Catholic Church, and all of the role of the episcopal conferences, which is not the right term, by the way. It should be called the Conference of Bishops and the Conferences of Bishops, because if you call it the Episcopal Conference, you can kind of think it's kind of, they get together and decide what to do, and have their own rules, etc., independent of others. So it's just a little detail, but in canon law, those terms are important. And
well, at least where our two biggest listening audiences are, Canada and the U.S., it's called the Conference of Bishops, the CCCB and the USCCB.
yes,
The
they got
Episcopal
it right.
Conference term is not used here. In that sense, those are the two that I know most of all. I don't remember all the other places. The U.S. also, a challenge there is that the Anglicans call themselves Episcopalians here. So the term Episcopal is often avoided because it can cause confusion with the American branch of the Anglican Church.
Yeah.
And those who are very technical. Yes, there are also Anglicans in the U.S., which are generally more conservative, for lack of a better term, more, on moral doctrines and things like that. But the main church is called the Episcopalian Church. I say that because I know some listeners are involved in that. Like one of my siblings goes to the Anglican use, like the ones united to the Pope, but using the Anglican liturgy and things like that. So those type of things. So I'm somewhat knowledgeable. But you mentioned the canon law. Is there anything else that comes out of canon law that you thought was important as kind of explaining what the teaching is of Christus Dominus, explaining what the role of the bishop is?
Yes. Well, it explains practically everything. His teaching office, he has ordinary, special, and immediate power to teach and to sanctify and to govern in a pastoral way, to be open also, as you mentioned, to these other ecumenical groups. And then his power of offering dispensations. He can, they have laws, but then there are certain occasions when a particular person in the diocese has a particular need, so he can dispense, he can make a relaxio legis, or relax the law in that particular case. And then it also explains his role and his need to be in contact with Rome and the Roman Curia and the nuncios. And then it also explains what happens when a bishop reaches the age of retirement and we have to get a new bishop. So there we have the role of the nuncios. They also is explained what they have to do. They have to consult the bishops of the province around them and then get their 3 or 4 names of different possible candidates. And he will examine all of those, make investigations. It's all there. And then the qualities that you look for in a bishop, it's all there in the Code of Canon Law as well. It's from Canon 362 to 572, you've got it all. So if you want to get the real concrete application of Christus Dominus, you'll find it in that part of the Code of Canon Law.
Oh, definitely. Now, you mentioned a role there, the nuncio. I don't know if all of our listeners would understand what the nuncio is. I know here in the U.S., our nuncio is Archbishop Christophe Pierre, but I think it would be good to explain what a nuncio is just briefly for the listeners there.
Sure. Well, if you like, he is the representative, the legate of the Holy Father in a particular country, in a particular area. And the Pope, as we all know, he can't be everywhere. And to ensure that right doctrine is being taught and the ways of giving the sacraments are being followed, and we're not coming up against heresy and what have you. And also difficulties in the weaknesses of bishops, their failings. All of that comes under certain scrutiny because the Pope has a particular role given to him by our blessed Lord to confirm the unity and to strengthen his flock throughout the world. So the Pope has these legates in different parts of the world. And as you mentioned, we have the Monsignor there, Christophe, in the United States. So he is involved. He's present at the beginning of these meetings of the conferences of Catholic bishops. He's there. He will give us discourse. He is the one who will receive the appointment of the new bishop when the Pope decides which of the 3. Normally, he has to send a turn at at least 3 possible candidates, and that is scrutinized and investigated in Rome as well. And then that will be sent back to him, and he calls up that candidate someday and he says, I'd like to speak to you. The Pope has named you Bishop of New York or Bishop of Chicago or whatever. So that's the role of the nuncio. So if you get a call from the nuncio, you might begin to become a little nervous, and you never know what's going to happen. No,
yeah, it's either he wants you to be a bishop or there's something very bad going on that he wants to help
maybe
with.
you put your foot in it or something.
Yeah, somehow or something. And things like that. The other document you were mentioning, we're talking about canon law. The other document that really explained Vatican II very well is a catechism that came out in the 1990s, the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Yes.
What does the catechism say about the role of bishops and expanding upon Christus Dominus or explaining Christus Dominus?
Well, I haven't got it here under my eyes right now, but it would bring it down. It brings it down a little bit more concretely from the point of view. Yeah, no, I have one, but I haven't got it here on hand.
For those who are just listening, I just pulled up my catechism and showed it on screen on our video chat.
Yeah. So it basically will explain also the rights and roles of the laity in with regard to the bishop, and the bishop with regard to the laity. It's important to realize that the laity also have their rights to good, solid doctrine and to the sacraments, and also to be governed in a pastoral way, in a way that Christ, in the way that Christ would. So, yes, all of that is explained in greater detail, and in a more, if you like, readable way in the Catechism. Whilst in canon law, it's pretty much the words are very, very precise and very legal. Yeah.
Yes, it's like the law versus the explanation, right?
Right.
I'm at Theology Fest, so I like the explanation part more than the law. But you're the canon lawyer, so you like the other. You at least appreciate the other.
The thing is that, if you drive down the street and go through the traffic lights that are red, there's going to be a crash. So you need to have laws that will explain what side of the road you go on. This is only one way, and that helps for, a kind of a way of living together that is peaceful, and we can be serene and, get by well. Yeah, you need both. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So let's just finally just go through a little bit of an outline of the document here, Christus Dominus.
Yes.
It has 3 chapters, and chapter 2 has 3 main subsections. I'm just hoping to get a little 1, 2, 3 sentence summary of each one, so that when we go through them as we read them, the audience is aware, this is the main point of this section or something. So chapter 1 is called The Relationship of Bishops to the Universal Church. And It's really talking about the College of Bishops. So what can you say about that chapter?
Well, basically it talks about the College of Bishops, a little bit about what I was explaining at the beginning of our conversation about collegial power and the role of unity in all of that. It's an application also of Lumen Gentium, from Numbers 19 to 23 thereabouts, talks about the role of the bishops, but it makes it more explicit. Then the role of the bishops in the universal church, and the role of the bishops in the apostolic see. What we talked a little bit about the nuncio, and his role also getting dispensations, and his relationship with the Roman Curia. As you know, too, with regard to that, there are these quinquennial visits to Rome, where the bishops from different regions will come and give a report to the different dicasteries in Rome about how they're doing and get some advice. And so that helps also towards the unity of the bishops in relation to the universal church. So that would be the first chapter. Then
I was just going to say the second chapter was bishops in particular churches or dioceses, which is broken up to diocesan bishops, diocesan boundaries, and then assistants in the pastoral office of diocesan bishops, the 3 subsections of chapter 2. So what would people be expecting in that chapter and those subsections?
Well, it explains the role of the diocesan bishops, in a diocese, their teaching office, their sanctifying mission, and then their role of governance. And then it talks also about the conference of the Catholic bishops and the diocesan boundaries, which is also interesting. I was involved in some of that. If there's a revision, the Christus Dominus asks for a revision of the diocesan boundaries because people move. As you come from Canada, you've probably seen the Diocese of Ottawa has taken on another diocese of Cornwall. And now it's called Ottawa-Cornwall. It used to be just Ottawa and then the Diocese of Cornwall. So this is something that is also addressed in that second chapter, diocesan boundaries. So they give criteria for the revision of all of that. And so the bishops would need to approve that. And the Conference of Catholic Bishops would need to approve that. And then they also talk about in another part of that second chapter, and those who will cooperate with the diocesan bishop in their pastoral tasks. So it talks about coadjutor and auxiliary bishops, their role. They're helping him. A coadjutor bishop would be one who would actually take the place of the ordinary bishop when he steps down, and he would have kind of like a lot of experience a year or two beforehand, working closely with him. So he'd be the coadjutor. Then it talks also about the different councils in the diocese, a diocesan council, the council of clergy, the parish priests, how transferals from one parish to another of a parish priest should be simplified. In the churches before Vatican II, a priest could be sent to a parish and he'd die there after maybe 40 or 50 years. It's not always a good thing for the people too. A priest sometimes after 7, 8 years or 6 years or whatever can move on and have new experience. So all of that is addressed in that second chapter. And then the role of religious is also addressed, as there are Dominicans, Jesuits, Franciscans in different dioceses. Their relationship with the bishop is important for the pastoral unity and the way they work in the diocese. But of course, the bishop will not get involved in their own interior life in the convents to see how they're getting on normally. But unless there's some scandal, then he has to kind of find out what's going on. But that's all about the second chapter.
I recognize that. Because I live in the Diocese of San Jose, but I've been teaching at St. Patrick's Seminary, which is 25 minutes away in the Diocese of San Francisco. So it's like the whole like religious and diocesan and the religious and the diocesan authorities in lives like mine gets a little complicated, because the reason being is like the legionaries, we have a house in San Jose. We don't have a house in San Francisco. Plus it's, only 25, 30 minutes. So it's a reasonable drive to go a few times a week to teach and things like that. And also, like you're talking about boundaries, one of the things that happened recently here was Las Vegas was named archdiocese. So one of the things people might not realize is that every diocese is part of what's called the ecclesiastical province, which is just basically every archdiocese and the dioceses that are kind of connected to it in a formal way. And Las Vegas was named archdiocese, and so Las Vegas, Reno, and Salt Lake City, I think, broke off from San Francisco, because San Francisco is the archdiocese here, and it was for there as well. But that was recent, just like 3 years ago or something. I don't remember.
Yes,
exactly.
That's a perfect example of what we were just talking about. You have the need of moving people, so you have to change the actual boundaries of the diocese.
Yeah, and that one didn't actually change directly the boundaries of the diocese. It changed the boundaries of the ecclesiastical province, basically creating another province with a new archdiocese. Now, the third chapter is concerning bishops cooperating for the common good of many churches. Could you give us a little explanation of that chapter?
Yes. They have, first of all, it talks about the need for synods. So the bishop would get involved with his local people, and so they have their own synod. We saw here in Rome how the Holy Fathers called an international synod of the whole church. But so their times change, and there are different needs to be addressed for the pastoral care of the people. So they call a synod, and they have bishops, and the bishop and the priests and the elite people, and they all have a say in that. So that gives them feedback. So these are councils. Then it talks there too a little bit more about the Conference of Bishops. You mentioned their role in the changing boundaries of the different provinces. Okay, so they would get involved in that as well, and the different regions. So the Episcopal Conference on a national level, or the Conference of Bishops on a national level, would talk about that. And so you have especially when they come to visit Rome, they'll come in their own province. There'll be maybe 3 different big groups of bishops coming from the East Coast, and then the Midwest, and then from the West. And they'd all have different approaches, pastoral approaches. Very, very interesting to hear them all. So that would be the bishops then in that particular chapter. How they also discharge their interdiocesan function, helping each other pastorally, talking about catechesis, for example, preparing children for confirmation or for matrimony in a given province or in a given region can be very, very helpful for the different bishops and the diocese to kind of get together and share. And they have a common approach, and some people will be able to give very enriching help to other provinces who might be a little bereft of those possibilities. And also in the way of printing out materials and sharing all of that. So an education level, that's all part of it. And then, of course, they're sharing with the other bishops. When they come up with the different regulations, they'd have a directive where they explain what they want to achieve, how they're going to achieve it, how often they're going to meet, what they're going to do in some of these meetings. So all of that would be their kind of statutes. And finally, there's one aspect here about the military ordinary. He's a bishop who wouldn't have a geographical area that he has to look after, but he can have, he's a military bishop, if you like, and so he has soldiers in Afghanistan, he has them in Los Angeles, he has them all. So he has priests helping him in that. So it's a kind of a diocese, a personal diocese rather than a geographical type of diocese. And so it has a different setup. And that's interesting to see how the church from the time of Jesus Christ with his apostles, giving them the authority and to go out into all the world and preach and teach and sanctify, how through the ages, these millennia, the things have changed, and how we still have the same doctrine, we still have the same sanctifying power, the same authority is there over these. It's really a miracle that we're living. But it's beautiful to see the work, and my own work in the Congregation for Bishops. Beautiful to see how these bishops travel, how they work hard to try and visit all of their different parishes and contact with the people. They just it's a beautiful way of living out their ministry, and very edifying. Of course, there were also those that weren't up to it at times, and so there were different interventions that had to be made. But the whole overall picture is very impressive and very encouraging, and so I'm very grateful for the years that I've been able to spend in that in the Congregation for Bishops.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's a great service to the church to work in the Vatican, because I don't think it's the kind of job that, that kind of behind the scenes job in the Vatican is not the job that I think a lot of people maybe aspire to in that sense. But I think it is super helpful to have people like what you were doing for about almost 2 decades to really look over and see how we can help bishops, which men are, might be good to become bishops and all those types of things. And I think we really need to appreciate and thank people like yourself and the people working there right now who are doing all that great work, so we have better bishops to serve the church better.
Yes, I think in a day and times when we hear so much negative, and there's so much, even politically, shouting at each other and one against the other, it's just beautiful to see how around the Pope there's so much unity. There also are other disintoning voices in odd time, but for the vast majority of the cases, we have a a very healthy church, thank God. So
Yes. Yes, no, it's wonderful. And I want to thank you for coming on here, Father Dermot. This has been very helpful. And I think your perspective as somebody who worked in the Vatican in that department is a little different. Most of the previous guests I've had on tend to be like theology professors who focus on that area and things like that. So I was looking for somebody, you might be slightly more practical. You do have the doctoral degree in canon law, but you're not primarily teaching theology as a lot of the other guests have been. So thank you for that. Do you have anything you want to share, which you think the listeners might be interested in that you've written or anything like that?
Well, just I think the unity, the communion of charity and prayer is unique. Keep that up. The Pope at this present moment is, at least as we're speaking now, his health is not too good, so we're all praying for him. And pray for all those who are quietly working and don't get into the news. They're being responsible. They have to make very difficult decisions and take that responsibility for that. So these are bishops and these are priests in your parish. I would encourage you all to be close to your priests and to be a support for them, to help them. But nobody's perfect. And we all need to reach out at times and touch people with our prayers and with our concrete collaboration too. So yes, thank you for this opportunity, and I wish you all God's blessing from the Eternal City here in Rome.
Yes, thank you, Father Dermot, for all that. For those who, unsurprising for most of you listeners, we do record this beforehand. We're recording this towards the end of February, where Pope Francis is in the hospital with pneumonia. So if you're whatever is happening when it comes out, that's what's happening when we're talking. So Father Dermot's talk about the Pope's health is he's in the hospital with pneumonia. So thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. I do this podcast on a volunteer basis, and my local religious community relies on donations to help pay our bills. If you want to support my community, you can go to patreon.com/frmatthewlc. There's also a link for a one-time donation on my own website, frmatthewlc.com. You can also donate to support StarQuest at sqpn.com/give. Tomorrow, we're going to start reading Christus Dominus. We're going to go paragraph by paragraph. Tomorrow, we're going to cover paragraphs 1 through 3, which are kind of the introduction before we get into chapter 1. Please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which will provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. If you want more information, like playlists for individual documents and a reading plan, go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X.